I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had turned white, and my heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Michael sat beside me, his face completely drained of colour, staring straight ahead like he'd seen a ghost. Just 5 minutes ago, we'd been laughing about Tommy's excitement to see his grandparents, and now the air in our car felt thick and scary. "Turn the car around. Now." Those words kept echoing in my head, the way Michael said them, not angry, not frustrated, but terrified. I'd never heard my husband sound like that before. His voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through me like a knife. "Why?" I had asked him, my voice shaking. We were only 20 minutes away from the reunion venue, the same beautiful lakeside resort where our family had been meeting every summer for the past 10 years. Tommy was already asking if we were almost there, bouncing in his car seat with his little backpack full of toys to show Grandma and Grandpa. "Just turn around, please." Michael's hands were trembling as he reached for his phone again, checking something that made his face go even paler. I'd never seen him look so scared, not even when Tommy had that terrible fever last winter and we rushed him to the hospital. I trusted him. After 8 years of marriage, I knew Michael wasn't the type to panic over nothing, so I did what he asked. I pulled over at the next exit, my hands shaking as I made a U-turn that would take us away from what was supposed to be the happiest day of our summer. "Mummy, why are we going the wrong way?" Tommy's little voice piped up from the back seat. "I want to see Grandma Helen. She promised to teach me how to skip rocks." My throat felt tight as I looked at my 6-year-old son in the rearview mirror. His big brown eyes were confused, and he was clutching the handmade card he'd spent all morning colouring for his grandparents. Red and blue crayon hearts covered the paper, with "I love you" written in his wobbly kindergarten handwriting. "We'll see them soon, sweetheart," I managed to say, though my voice cracked. I didn't even know if that was true anymore. Michael was typing frantically on his phone, his fingers moving so fast I could barely follow. Every few seconds he'd get a new message that made him curse under his breath, words he never used in front of Tommy. The phone kept buzzing, over and over, like an angry bee trapped in his hands. "Michael, you're scaring me," I whispered, trying to keep my voice low so Tommy wouldn't hear. "What's happening? Why can't we go to the reunion?" He looked at me then, and I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach drop. It wasn't just fear, it was heartbreak, like he was about to tell me something that would change everything forever. "I can't explain right now," he said quietly. "But Anna, I need you to trust me. We cannot go to that reunion. We cannot see your parents today." My parents. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. My mom and dad, who had raised me with so much love and care. My father, who still called me his little princess, even though I was 32 years old. My mother, who sent me care packages every month filled with my favourite cookies and little notes telling me how proud she was of me. What could possibly be wrong with seeing them? "Are they okay?" I asked, panic rising in my voice. "Are Mum and Dad hurt? Is that why we can't go?" Michael's phone buzzed again, and when he read the message, he actually gasped out loud. His face went from pale to completely white, like all the blood had drained out of his body. "They're not hurt," he said slowly. "But, Anna, God, I don't know how to tell you this." The highway stretched out in front of us as we drove away from the lake, away from the reunion, away from my family. Other cars were probably heading toward the resort right now, filled with cousins and aunts and uncles all excited to see each other. My sister Grace had flown in from California just for this weekend. Everyone would be wondering where we were. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Tommy announced from the back seat. "Can we stop for chicken nuggets?" "Sure, buddy," Michael said, but his voice sounded far away. He was still staring at his phone like it contained the worst news in the world. I pulled into the parking lot of a fast food restaurant, my hands still shaking. As I turned off the engine, the silence in the car felt heavy and wrong. This morning we'd been a happy family heading to a fun reunion. Now we were sitting in a parking lot, running away from something I didn't understand. Michael finally looked up from his phone and turned to face me. His eyes were red, like he was trying not to cry. "Anna," he said softly, "I need to tell you something about your parents. Something that's going to change everything." This morning felt like a lifetime ago now, but I could still remember every perfect detail. I had woken up at 6:30, an hour earlier than usual, because I was so excited about the reunion. The The sun was streaming through our bedroom curtains, and I could hear Tommy already awake in his room, probably playing with his toy cars like he did every morning. I had spent weeks planning for this day. My parents always made such a big deal about our family reunions, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I'd bought a new dress, a soft blue one that my mother had complimented when we video called last week. She always noticed what I wore, always had opinions about my clothes, my hair, even the way I decorated our house. "You look so pretty in blue, sweetheart," she had said during our call. "It brings out your eyes. You should wear more blue." And just like always, I had listened. I'd gone shopping the very next day to find the perfect blue dress for the reunion. In the kitchen that morning, I'd been humming while I packed our overnight bags. Tommy's little suitcase was filled with his favorite pajamas, the stuffed elephant he couldn't sleep without, and 3 different outfits because I could never decide what looked best on him. My mother always took so many pictures during our visits, and I wanted Tommy to look perfect in every single one. "Mummy, is Grandpa Robert going to let me help him with his puzzles again?" Tommy had asked while eating his cereal. My father always brought these complicated jigsaw puzzles to our reunions, 1,000-piece landscapes and famous paintings that would take hours to complete. Tommy wasn't really much help, but Dad always acted like my 6-year-old was the most important puzzle assistant in the world. "Of course he will, baby," I had told him, ruffling his hair. "Grandpa loves doing puzzles with you." Michael had been quiet that morning, but I thought it was just because he wasn't a morning person. He'd been checking his phone more than usual, but lots of people checked their phones. I didn't think anything of it. I was too busy making sure we had everything we needed. My parents had very specific expectations for these reunions. My mother always wanted me to bring homemade cookies, the same recipe her mother had taught her when she was young. I'd spent 2 hours the night before baking 3 dozen chocolate chip cookies, making sure each one was perfectly round and golden brown. Mom would notice if they weren't just right. "Did you remember to pack the good camera?" I had asked Michael while zipping up our suitcase. "Mom wants to get a professional family photo this year. She already picked out the spot by the lake where the lighting is best." My mother planned everything about our reunions down to the smallest detail. What time we'd arrive, where we'd sit for meals, what activities we'd do each day. She said it was because she wanted to make the most of our time together, since we only saw each other a few times a year. I thought it was sweet how much effort she put into making sure everyone had a good time. "Anna, you know your parents love you, right?" Michael had said suddenly while I was checking our bags one more time. It was such a strange thing to say. Of course my parents loved me. They told me so every time we talked. "What kind of question is that?" I had laughed. "Of course they love me. They're my parents." But Michael had this weird look on his face, like he wanted to say something else but couldn't find the words. He'd been doing that a lot lately, starting to say something, then stopping himself. I figured it was work stress. His job had been really demanding recently. My phone had rung while I was loading the car, and my mother's smiling face appeared on the screen. She called every few days, but she'd been calling more often lately, asking lots of questions about our plans. "Good morning, sweetheart." Her cheerful voice had filled the car through the speakers. "Are you all packed and ready for our big day?" "Almost ready, Mom. We should be there right on time." "Wonderful! And Michael is coming with you, right? He's not going to have any last-minute work emergencies?" It was the 3rd time that week she'd asked about Michael. I thought maybe she was just making sure we'd have enough beds reserved at the resort. "He's coming, Mum. He's really looking forward to it." "Good, good. And you're taking the usual route? Highway 95 to Route 12? "Yes, Mom. Same way we always go." "Perfect. Drive safely, honey. We can't wait to see you." After I hung up, Michael had been staring at me with that same strange expression. "Your mum asks a lot of questions," he had said quietly. "She just wants to make sure everything goes smoothly. You know how she is about planning." But now, sitting in this parking lot with my husband looking like he'd seen something terrible, I was starting to wonder if there was more to my mother's questions than just careful planning. The way she'd asked about our route, about Michael coming with us, about our exact arrival time, it felt different now. Less like a caring mother, and more like someone who needed to know exactly where we'd be and when. Tommy was still asking about chicken nuggets, and Michael was still staring at his phone like it held the answers to questions I didn't even know we were asking. The first hour of our drive had been perfect, just like I'd imagined it would be. Tommy was singing along to his favorite songs from the back seat, and I was telling Michael about all the fun things we'd planned for the weekend. The lake would be perfect for swimming, and my dad had promised to take Tommy fishing early in the morning before anyone else was awake. Remember last year when Tommy caught that tiny fish and insisted we take 100 pictures of it? I had laughed, glancing at Michael in the passenger seat. Dad was so proud, you'd think Tommy had caught a whale. But Michael wasn't laughing. He was holding his phone in his lap, and it kept lighting up with message after message. Every time it buzzed, his shoulders got a little more tense. "Work?" I had asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Something like that," he'd mumbled, but he wouldn't look at me when he said it. 20 minutes into the drive, my phone rang. Mom again. "Hi, sweetheart, just checking in. How's the drive going?" "Great, Mom, we're making good time." "Wonderful, and you're still planning to arrive around 2 o'clock?" "Yes, Mom, just like we planned." "Perfect. Your father and I are so excited to see you. We have some big news to share with the family this weekend." Something about the way she said big news made my stomach flutter, but in a good way. Maybe they were planning a special trip, or maybe Dad was finally going to retire like he'd been talking about for years. "What kind of news?" I asked. "Oh, it's a surprise, honey, but it's going to change everything for our family, in the best possible way." After I hung up, Michael was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Big news?" he asked. "You know my parents. They love their surprises." But Michael didn't smile. Instead, he went back to his phone, typing frantically. I could see his reflection in the passenger window, and his face looked worried, really worried. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. "Princess, how's my favorite daughter doing?" "I'm your only daughter, Dad," I laughed. It was our usual joke. "And that's what makes you my favorite. Listen, sweetheart, I wanted to ask you something. You're bringing all your important documents with you this weekend, right? Your passport, birth certificate, that sort of thing?" The question caught me off guard. Why would I need those at a family reunion? "Oh, just some paperwork we need to take care of while you're here. Nothing to worry about. You know how these legal things are. Always need proper identification." "Legal things? Just some family business, Princess. We'll explain everything when you get here. You did bring those documents, right?" I glanced at Michael, who was now staring at me with wide eyes. No, Dad. I didn't think I'd need them for a weekend at the lake." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Well, that's okay. We can work around it. See you soon, sweetheart." When I hung up, Michael immediately grabbed my arm. "Anna, why would your father need your legal documents at a family reunion?" "I don't know. Maybe they're updating their will or something. Maybe they want to add Tommy as a beneficiary." But even as I said it, something felt wrong. My parents had never asked for my documents before, and the way my father's voice had changed when I said I didn't have them, like he was disappointed or maybe even angry. Michael's phone buzzed again, and this time, when he read the message, he actually gasped out loud. "What is it?" I asked. "Nothing. Just work stuff." But it wasn't work stuff. I could tell by the way his hands were shaking as he typed back, by the way he kept glancing at me like he was seeing me for the first time. My mother called again 15 minutes later. "Sweetheart, one more quick question. You haven't told anyone else about our reunion this weekend, have you? Any friends or co-workers?" "No, Mom." "Why?" "Oh, we just want to keep it intimate, family only. You understand." "Of course. And, Anna? When you get here, we'd like to talk to you privately first, before you see the rest of the family. There are some things we need to discuss." "What kind of things?" "Just some family matters, honey. Nothing for you to worry about. We'll take good care of everything." The way she said "take care of everything" sent a chill down my spine, though I couldn't explain why. After that call, Michael was typing so fast on his phone I thought he might break it. His face had gone completely pale, and he kept muttering things under his breath that I couldn't quite hear. "Michael, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Anna, I need you to think carefully. Has anything felt different about your parents lately? Any strange questions, unusual behavior?" I thought about all the phone calls, all the specific questions about our route and timing, about my father asking for legal documents and my mother wanting to talk privately. "Maybe a little," I admitted. "But they're just excited to see us." Michael's phone buzzed one more time, and when he read the message, all the color drained from his face. "Turn the car around," he whispered. "Now." And that's when everything changed. "Anna, pull over, please. I need to tell you something, and I need you to be sitting still when I do." My hands were shaking as I guided our car into the parking lot of a small roadside diner. Tommy had fallen asleep in his car seat, his little head tilted to one side, still clutching the card he'd made for his grandparents. The sight of him sleeping so peacefully made what I was about to hear even more terrifying. Michael turned his whole body toward me, and I could see tears forming in his eyes. In 8 years of marriage, I'd only seen Michael cry twice, when Tommy was born and when his father died. Whatever he was about to tell me was that serious. "Anna, I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to try to stay calm." "You're scaring me, Michael. Just tell me what's happening." He took a deep breath and held up his phone. "Remember my friend Kevin, the one who works for the state attorney's office?" I nodded. Kevin had been Michael's college roommate, and they still talked occasionally. "He's been trying to reach me all morning. Anna, your parents, they're not who you think they are." "What do you mean?" Michael's voice was barely a whisper. "They've been planning something terrible. The reunion today. It wasn't really a reunion. It was a trap." The words hit me like a physical blow. "A trap? Michael, that's crazy. They're my parents. They love me." "Anna, listen to me. Kevin found out through his office that your parents have been working with a corrupt doctor and a lawyer. They've been planning to have you declared mentally incompetent today, at the reunion." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What?" "They forged medical records. They paid people to lie about your mental state. The plan was to have you committed to a psychiatric facility so they could gain legal control over you." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "That's impossible. Why would they do that?" Michael reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder I'd never seen before. "Because of this. Anna, your grandmother left you money when she died. A lot of money. Your parents told you it all went to charity, remember?" I did remember. When Grandma Rose died 3 years ago, my parents had been so sad about her passing. They told me she'd donated everything to various charities in her will, that she wanted to help people even after she was gone. I'd been proud of her for that. "She didn't donate it to charity," Michael continued, his voice breaking. "She left it all to you. $2.7 million. The number hit me like a truck. "That's not possible." Kevin helped me get copies of the real will. "Look." Michael opened the folder and showed me official-looking documents with my grandmother's signature. My name was highlighted in yellow on several pages. "Your parents have been stealing from you for 3 years, Anna. They've been living off your inheritance while keeping you financially dependent on them. And when they realized you might eventually find out, they came up with this plan." I stared at the papers, but the words were swimming in front of my eyes. "The psychiatric facility. Once you were declared incompetent, they would have permanent control over your money and over you. Anna, you would have disappeared. They were going to make sure you never came home." My stomach lurched, and for a moment I thought I might throw up. "The phone calls this morning. All those questions. They needed to know exactly when you'd arrive, what route you were taking. The people at the reunion today, they weren't all family members. Some of them were part of the plan. The doctor who was going to examine you, the witnesses who were going to testify about your supposed mental illness." I thought about my mother's voice on the phone, so sweet and caring. "We have some big news to share with the family this weekend." The big news was that they were going to destroy my life. "The legal documents," I whispered. Dad asked if I brought my passport and birth certificate. "They needed those to complete the commitment process. When you said you didn't have them, they probably had to adjust their timeline." Everything was starting to make horrible sense. The private conversation my mother wanted to have, the way they'd been asking about Michael, making sure he'd be there too. They probably had plans for him as well. "Michael, how did Kevin find out about this?" One of the people they tried to bribe came forward, a nurse at the psychiatric facility. "She got suspicious when your parents offered her money to falsify records about your supposed previous treatments there, treatments that never happened." I looked back at Tommy, still sleeping peacefully in his car seat. They were going to do this in front of him? I don't think they cared who saw it, Anna. Once the process started, it would have been too late to stop it. "You would have been taken away, and Tommy," Michael's voice trailed off. What about Tommy? With you declared incompetent and me fighting the legal system, they probably would have tried to get custody of him too. Complete control over the family and the money. The people I had loved and trusted my entire life had been planning to destroy me, to take my child, to steal my inheritance and lock me away forever. Anna, we can't go to that reunion. We can't see your parents. Not today, not ever. The documents Michael showed me next made everything so much worse. Kevin had managed to get copies of bank records, forged medical files, and even recorded phone conversations between my parents and the people they'd hired to help them. Anna, I need you to see how deep this goes, Michael said gently, spreading more papers across the dashboard. This isn't something they just thought of recently. They've been planning this for years. The first document was a bank statement from an account I'd never seen before. My grandmother's name was at the top, but the account had been transferred to my parents 3 years ago, right after her funeral. Every month since then, they'd been withdrawing thousands of dollars. Look at the dates, Michael pointed to the withdrawal records. Remember when your parents suddenly decided to renovate their entire house? When your dad bought that expensive new car? When they took that month-long trip to Europe? I remembered all of those things. I'd been so happy for them, thinking they'd finally decided to enjoy their retirement. My father had worked so hard his whole life, and I thought he deserved nice things. It was my money, I whispered. They were spending my inheritance and lying to my face about it. There's more. Michael pulled out another folder. These are the fake medical records they created about you. I stared at papers that claimed I'd been treated for severe depression, anxiety, and something called delusional episodes. According to these files, I'd been seeing a psychiatrist for 2 years and had been prescribed medications that I'd never even heard of. Dr. Harrison. I read the name at the bottom of the fake prescriptions. I've never met anyone named Dr. Harrison. He's the doctor they paid to examine you today. He was going to testify that you'd been his patient, that you were dangerous to yourself and others, and that you needed immediate psychiatric care. My hands were shaking as I read through the lies they'd written about me. According to these records, I'd threatened to hurt Tommy, had tried to harm myself multiple times, and believed that people were following me. None of it was true, but it looked so official, so real. How could they do this to me? I asked, tears streaming down my face. I'm their daughter. Michael pulled out his phone and played an audio recording. Kevin's office got this yesterday. My mother's voice filled the car, clear as day. The girl has always been too trusting, too naive. She'll believe whatever we tell her. Once we have her committed, we can take care of the Michael problem too. He's been asking too many questions lately. The Michael problem? I looked at my husband in horror. Keep listening, he said quietly. My father's voice came through the speakers. We'll say he's been abusing her. That's why she's so unstable. No one will believe him over us. We've been her parents for 32 years. We know how to handle Anna. I felt sick. They were talking about me like I was a problem to be solved, not their daughter. And they were planning to destroy Michael too, the man who'd loved and protected me for 8 years. There's more, my mother's voice continued. Once we have custody of the boy, we can raise him properly. Anna never knew how to be a real mother anyway. Too soft? Too permissive? The child needs structure. They wanted to take Tommy away from me, my beautiful, sweet little boy who was sleeping peacefully in the back seat, trusting that his mummy and daddy would keep him safe. Michael stopped the recording and showed me another document. This is the custody petition they were planning to file. They claim you're an unfit mother and that Tommy would be better off with them. I read through their lies about my parenting. They claimed I left Tommy alone for hours, that I fed him inappropriate foods, that I'd been neglecting his education and medical care. Every single word was a lie, but they'd made it sound so convincing. The reunion today, I said slowly, understanding finally dawning. Everyone who was supposed to be there. Most of them were real family members who had no idea what was happening, but some of them were paid witnesses. People who were going to testify that they'd seen you acting strangely, that they were worried about Tommy's safety when he was with you. I thought about my sister Grace, flying in from California for the reunion. Does Grace know? Michael shook his head. Kevin thinks she's completely innocent. Your parents probably planned to tell her you'd had a breakdown and needed help. She would have believed them, just like everyone else would have. How long have they been planning this? The earliest documents Kevin found are from 18 months ago. Right around the time you and I started talking about buying a bigger house, remember? When you mentioned wanting to be more independent? I did remember. Michael and I had been looking at houses in a different neighborhood, somewhere with better schools for Tommy. My parents had seemed upset about the idea of us moving farther away, but I'd thought it was just normal parental concern. They couldn't control me if I moved away, I realized, and they couldn't keep stealing my money if I started asking questions about my finances. Anna, there's one more thing. Michael's voice was barely audible. The psychiatric facility they chose for you, it's not a regular hospital. It's a private institution with a very bad reputation. People who go there, sometimes they don't come out. The silence in our car felt heavy as I stared at the final document Michael handed me. It was a commitment order, already filled out with my name, ready to be signed by a judge who had apparently been paid to approve it without question. At the bottom, in my mother's handwriting, were the words, indefinite commitment, severe and persistent mental illness. Indefinite. They weren't planning to let me out, ever. Anna, Michael said softly, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to make some decisions. Kevin is waiting for us to call him back. The FBI wants to arrest your parents, but they need to know we're safe first. I looked back at Tommy, still sleeping peacefully. His little face was so innocent, so trusting. He had no idea that the grandparents he loved so much had been planning to take him away from his parents forever. The FBI? This isn't just theft, Anna. It's conspiracy, fraud, attempted kidnapping. Your parents were planning to destroy multiple lives today. Kevin says there might be other victims too, other people your parents have done this to. Other victims. The thought made me feel sick all over again. How many families had my parents destroyed? How many people were sitting in psychiatric facilities right now because of schemes like this one? I pulled out my phone and stared at my mother's contact information. Her smiling face looked back at me from the screen, a photo I'd taken last Christmas when she was holding Tommy on her lap, both of them laughing at something silly he'd said. She'd seemed so loving, so grandmotherly. How had I never seen the evil hiding behind that smile? They're probably wondering where we are by now, I said. Kevin says they've been calling the resort every hour, asking if we've checked in yet. They're getting nervous. My phone buzzed with a text message from my mother. Sweetheart, we're getting worried. Are you okay? Please call us as soon as you get this. Even now, even knowing what I knew, her words sounded caring and concerned. If Michael hadn't found out the truth, I would have called her back immediately, apologizing for being late, rushing to get to the reunion so I wouldn't disappoint her. I need to call Kevin, I said finally. I need to hear this from him directly. Michael dialed the number and put the phone on speaker. Kevin's voice filled the car, professional but kind. Anna, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I know how hard this must be. Kevin, is it really true? All of it? I'm afraid so. We have recordings, documents, witness testimony. Your parents have been planning this for over a year, and Anna, we found evidence that they've done this before. Before? Your father's sister, Patricia, she disappeared about 10 years ago. The family was told she'd moved to Florida and wanted to cut contact with everyone. We found records showing she was committed to the same psychiatric facility your parents chose for you. She died there 2 years later. Aunt Patricia. I remembered her vaguely from my childhood. Sweet woman who always brought me books when she visited. My parents had told me she'd had a mental breakdown and moved away. I'd been sad, but accepted their explanation. They killed her, I whispered. We can't prove that yet, but we're investigating. Anna, your parents are dangerous people. They've been using their respectable reputation to hide some very serious crimes. I thought about all the times people had told me how lucky I was to have such wonderful parents, how they'd seemed like the perfect family to everyone who knew them. It had all been a lie. What happens now? I asked. We need you to stay away from them completely. Don't answer their calls. Don't go home until we've arrested them. We're moving in on the reunion location in about an hour. What about Grace? My sister doesn't know any of this. We'll make sure she's safe. She's actually been helpful. She's been asking your parents questions about why you're late, and their answers are giving us more evidence of their guilt. Tommy stirred in his car seat, opening his sleepy eyes. Mommy, are we there yet? I turned around to look at my beautiful son, this little person who trusted me to keep him safe. Not yet, baby. We're going somewhere different today. But I want to see Grandma and Grandpa. The innocence in his voice broke my heart. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that the people he loves wanted to hurt his family? I know, sweetheart. But Mommy and Daddy need to take care of some grown-up things first. Kevin's voice came through the phone again. Anna, I know this is hard, but you saved your family today. If you'd gone to that reunion, if Michael hadn't figured out what was happening, I didn't want to think about what would have happened. Tommy would have watched his mother being taken away by strangers. Michael would have been arrested on false charges. My son would have been left with people who saw him as nothing more than a tool for control and money. Thank you, I said to Kevin. Thank you for saving us. Thank Michael. He's the one who kept pushing for answers when something felt wrong. I looked at my husband, this man who had protected our family even when I couldn't see the danger myself. How did you know? I love you, Michael said simply. And I know you. The woman your parents described in those fake medical records isn't the woman I married. I knew something was very, very wrong.